Daniel Hawk didn't come to Silver Hollow searching for forgiveness, nor was he chasing any kind of redemption. Redemption was for men who believed the past could be scrubbed clean. Daniel had long stopped believing in that. What he came for was something quieter, something harder to find in a noisy world. He came for silence. Silver Hollow was the kind of place most people forgot existed. A ghost scribbled on the edge of old maps, left to rot between two jagged ridgelines of rural Colorado. The mining town had once been loud with men, steel, and ambition, but now it stood stripped of all purpose, a carcass of wood and rust. Its hollowed-out buildings leaned like brittle bones, their windows dark, their doors sagging, waiting for time itself to bury them. But for Daniel, that emptiness wasn't frightening, it was perfect. This was exactly what he wanted, a place with no questions, no judgment, no demands. Here, the only law was wind sweeping through weeds and the slow crumble of forgotten walls. Daniel hadn't wandered here by chance. He had chosen Silver Hollow deliberately, and more than that, he had bought it. Every rotting storefront, every weed-choked street, every nail left to rust in silence. A forgotten town for a man who wanted nothing more than to be forgotten himself. Once Daniel had been a Marine, a soldier who had traveled too far, seen too much, and done more than he cared to remember. His memories weren't medals, they were weights. The eyes that had once scanned horizons for threats now searched for peace, though he doubted he'd ever truly find it. He carried his years not like blessings, but like armor, scars buried deep under skin, silence tucked into every step. The road into Silver Hollow ended without warning, little more than a dirt vein swallowed by wilderness. Daniel drove it in, his rust-colored pickup, the bed stacked with crates of supplies. The engine rattled, but it carried him faithfully to where the world simply stopped. Behind him stretched everything he had abandoned. Before him waited everything he had chosen. In the passenger seat sat Max, his only constant. A German shepherd, with a grizzled coat, fur marked by the gray of years, and amber eyes sharp as fire. Max had followed Daniel from his last post, and every mile since, steady as a shadow, loyal as breath itself. He didn't need words. His presence was enough. Tjatgur. Truck rolled to a slow stop before the old town hall, its sign crooked, its walls peeling like dead bark. Daniel killed the engine, and in that instant the world outside went utterly still. No birds, no rustle of leaves, just the low, warning rumble in Max's chest as his ears flicked forward. The silence thickened, not empty but watchful. Daniel felt it too, an instinct that had kept him alive in darker places. Something was alive here, something breathing inside this ghost town. Daniel opened the door, his boots grinding gravel with each step. The silence swallowed him whole. Max slid down beside him, pressing close to his heel with the kind of discipline that didn't need a command. Together they moved forward, man and dog, into streets that seemed more graveyard than town. Buildings leaned on each other like old men too tired to stand, windows hollow as eyes, weeds climbing high between cracks in the street. Daniel drew in a long breath of the mountain air, cold, dry, so sharp it almost tasted clean, though it left an unsettling edge in his chest. He scanned the emptiness. Then Max froze, body stiff, tail rigid, gaze locked on the town's old general store, a collapsing structure with a porch ready to fall in and a sun-bleached sign clinging crookedly to rusted nails. The wooden steps creaked under Daniel's weight as he crossed the porch. Max was at his side, moving like a shadow, nose twitching at the stale scent that seeped through the cracks. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. Daniel had already sensed it. Someone was inside. A dry, ragged cough confirmed it. Human, weak. Daniel raised a hand to knock, but the door opened first. A young woman stood framed in the dim light beyond. She was barefoot, her face pale and drawn. her long hair tied back in a braid that looked more weary than neat. In her arms, she held a small girl no older than 6 or 7. The child's head sagged against her mother's chest, skin flushed with fever, eyes closed too tightly, as though sleep and pain had tangled together. "She's sick," the woman whispered. Her voice cracked, barely strong enough to rise over the silence. Daniel didn't ask questions. He only nodded once, the gesture carrying all the weight of understanding. The woman stepped aside hesitantly, uncertain, but she didn't stop him from looking in. Inside, the old store had been remade into something fragile but lived in. Blankets hung like thin walls, crates had been stacked into shelves and chairs, and an oil lamp burned soft in the corner, casting light over a pallet where quilts had been piled for the sick child. The woman, her name would come later, knelt and brushed damp strands of hair from her daughter's brow, murmuring words too soft to hear. "My name is Clara," she finally said, still not meeting Daniel's eyes. Her voice carried the weight of long days and too many losses. "We had a ranch not far from here. My husband—" She faltered, swallowed, then steadied herself. "The flu took him fast, too fast. And then the bank came, said he signed a loan, equipment we never owned, a signature I know wasn't his. But they didn't care. They took everything, left us with nothing." Daniel didn't ask more. He didn't offer comfort. He turned and walked back outside. For a moment, Clara stiffened, a flash of fear flickering in her breath. Max looked up at him, uncertain. But Daniel returned minutes later, arms stacked with supplies, a box of canned food, a sack of rice, a jug of clean water, and a wool blanket folded neat. He set them by the door and gave no speech, no invitation. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. Then came the sound that cracked the stillness, the grinding tires of a vehicle kicking up dust. Daniel was on the porch, hammer still in hand from where he'd been mending a step. Max lay stretched out nearby, one eye closed, the other watching. Both snapped alert as an engine roared into town. A dark SUV tore down the road, too fast, too deliberate. It skidded to a stop so close to the porch the dust swallowed them whole. From inside stepped a man in a tan sheriff's uniform, heavy-set, late 50s, face red with heat and habit. His badge caught the sun like a warning blade. "Sheriff." "Maddox!" he barked, as if declaring ownership, not introducing himself. "This won't take long." Clara appeared in the doorway, Emily pressed tight against her chest, knuckles white around the blanket. "You're trespassing on bank property," Maddox announced. "Foreclosure's done. No appeal. You need to leave." Daniel's voice was low, flat, steady as iron. "This isn't bank property," he said. "It's mine. I bought this town." Maddox's face twisted into disbelief. "What?" Daniel reached into his back pocket, unfolded a paper, and held it where the sun could touch it, the deed, official and final. He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. That was when Max rose. His body shifted in an instant, shoulders squared, head low, teeth barely showing. A growl rippled from deep in his chest, the kind of sound that carried a promise. He planted himself between Clara, the child, and the sheriff. Maddox faltered. For the first time, he realized he wasn't in control here, and word traveled fast, too fast. Before long, whispers spread like dry brush catching flame. A man had bought Silver Hollow, a man who stood against the sheriff, a man with a dog that would defend a stranger as if it were family. They came quietly at first, one truck, then another, then more. Families worn down by the same enemy, banks, papers, signatures they never signed. They came with their grief, their silence, their children who no longer laughed. They asked for nothing, demanded nothing, only stayed because they could. Daniel said little. He nodded once, turned back to his work, patched a roof. At night, they gathered in the streets around small fires. No music, no noise, just coffee passed. Around and stories shared like scars. Each story cut deeper than the last. A husband gone to cancer, a widow robbed by forged papers, a father too sick to hold a pen, yet accused of signing loans. Then Isabel Ruiz's voice cut through the firelight, heavier than the rest. "There was a boy," she whispered. "Nathan Cole. Worked at the bank. Barely 22. He noticed the lies. Signatures that didn't match. Backdated papers. He said he had proof. Said he copied it." She twisted the ring on her finger, eyes fixed on the flames. "He wanted to meet. Said it was dangerous. Then he disappeared. 2 days later. Left everything. Gone without a trace." The silence that followed was heavy, like ash drifting over their small fire. Daniel listened. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. Max, sensing the shift, rose quietly, ears forward. And when dawn came, the dog led Daniel into the forest, toward something hidden, something waiting. The cabin appeared out of the trees, broken and sagging, its walls damp with years of rain. Inside, beneath warped floorboards, Daniel uncovered a rusted metal box. Its weight was heavy, its secrets heavier still. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay ledgers, contracts, forged signatures, proof enough to damn an empire. And at the top, an envelope, thin, edges worn. Nathan's name. Daniel unfolded the letter. The words trembled in his hands. "If you're reading this, I couldn't bear it. The lies. I couldn't be a part of it any longer. It was never right. You must expose it, please." The words hit Daniel like a hammer to the chest. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Max nudged the box with his nose, urging him forward. They had found it, the proof, and with it, a choice. And a burden. Daniel carried the metallic box back into what used to be the general store, each step heavy with meaning. Inside, Isabel and Clara hovered by the single oil lamp. Shadows collided across their faces when he placed the box on the crate. "This is what Nathan left," Daniel said, voice measured. "Proof." He opened it. The ledger, the contracts, the letter. Then he allowed them to see the signatures, the dates, the lies. Isabel leaned forward, fingers shaking. This is everything. Clara touched the pages as though they were fragile wings. They can't deny this. The air shifted. Hope flared like embers reborn into flame. People's shoulders straightened. The weight of weeks of torment lifted briefly. Then the front door burst open. Sheriff Maddox stood there, rifles slung low, eyes dark with something like triumph. "I found Nathan," he announced. "He's cooperating, confessed everything about you, your so-called fraud scheme. You're all in it together." Gasps cracked through the crowd. Faces shifted. Confusion stung the bright moment. Clara Ara placed a hand on Emily's small shoulder, bending close. The girl's breath was quick, shallow. Suddenly, Emily convulsed. A choking sound tore from her lungs. Clara cradled her, voice shaking. "Emily." Daniel and Isabel rushed forward, lowering the girl to a pallet of quilts. Fear and fury ignited in Daniel's eyes. Despite the lid's weight, he snapped the box shut. Proof had arrived. But now there was nothing more precious than life. In the sudden chaos, 2 wars unfolded, one for justice, another for the breath of a child. Panic tore through the gathering as Emily lay rigid, limbs twitching uncontrollably. Clara screamed, cradling her daughter like a lifeline. Daniel dropped to his knees beside them. Max pressing close as if offering his own warmth. Daniel remembered what he'd learned. Stay calm. Remove danger. Keep the airway open. He gently eased Emily onto the ground, nudging away debris. A wool blanket went under her head. He tilted her small body to the side so she wouldn't choke. Isabel grabbed a basin of cool water and dampened a cloth, laying it softly across the girl's brow. Daniel loosened the collar of Emily's shirt, checking her breathing and timing the seizure with a steady count in his head. Every second felt like a lifetime. Then, as abruptly as it began, the convulsions stopped. Emily's body slackened, her chest heaving. In shallow gasps, Daniel stayed with her, his voice low, soothing, until her eyes fluttered open, confusion mixing with rising pain. And at that moment, Sheriff Maddox stepped into the dim glow. He looked haggarded, his uniform dirty, face lined with regret. He swallowed hard, voice breaking. "I lied," he said, barely more than a whisper. "Nathan didn't confess, I made it up." His gaze dropped to the ground. "I just wanted to scare you into giving up." Silence followed, thick and heavy. Then another voice, trembling, desperate, cut through. "She needs a doctor. She needs help now." Maddox looked up, shame in his eyes. "There's a man," he said after a pause. "Me north in the Black Ridge Reservation. His name is Elijah Stormwalker. He's not a doctor, not by the state's standards, but they say has saved children when no one else could." A flicker of hope lit Clara's face. Daniel stood. Then we go to night. Night had wrapped the mountains in darkness as Daniel, Clara, and Sheriff Maddox set out with Max guiding silently ahead. The path wound upward, gravel crunching beneath worn boots, breaths clouding in the chill air. Every step invited danger, roots, loose rocks, and unseen drops lurking just beyond the edge of their lantern's glow. Clara clutched Emily to her chest, the girl's small frame trembling. Maddox stumbled behind them, guilt and determination etched on his face. Daniel led the way, eyes scanning the trail, pulse quickening with the thinning air. Max halted at a narrow ledge. Daniel glanced over. Downfall plunged into darkness. He tightened his grip on Clara's arm. The dog looked up, amber eyes steady, and took a cautious step forward. Daniel followed, trusting the silent assurance of his canine companion. Wind whispered through pine branches, colder with every step. Shadows shifted. Maddox paused close to exhaustion. Clara soothed Emily, whispering into her hair. "You're doing the right thing," Daniel said quietly. Maddox nodded voice. This feels like atonement." They pressed on, hours blurred beneath the stars. Landmarks disappeared into the black expanse, but Max never faltered, nose to ground, guiding them with quiet certainty. Finally, as dawn's first light touched the ridgeline, they reached the crest. Below, nestled in the valley, lay the Black Ridge. Reservation log cabins clustered together, thin smoke rising from chimneys into the waking sky. Maddox exhaled, his face pale with relief. Clara's legs gave out, but Daniel caught her. Emily stirred faintly in her arms, her breath steadying. They had made it, not just through the wilderness, but toward the hope that Elijah Stormwalker still held. By midday, the horizon churned with dust and the promise of justice. Maria arrived in town, driving fast on narrow roads, her heart pounding like a war drum. In the front seat, the metal box rested heavy and final. Federal agents came next. Dark SUVs, rolling in and stopping without ceremony. Men in plain jackets stepped out, badges glinting, authority older and sharper than any sheriff's uniform. Clara, Daniel, Isabel, and the others watched as the box and its contents emerged from the truck and were carried away into federal custody. Clara Ara's hands trembled, but this time with relief. Later the same day, the bank's president was arrested. Not in a dramatic showdown, but with a quiet knock at his office door, cuffed for his lies, his empire cracking around him. Back at Black Ridge, Elijah tended Emily with ancient chants and healing teas, steeped in cedar smoke and sage. The child's fever broke, and her eyes, once dull and distant, now flickered with curiosity. Days passed in a haze of hope and purpose. The town came alive. The general store reopened under Clara's name, its shelves now stocked. Family stilled soil, planted gardens. Laughter returned soft and careful. Maddox appeared, quieter now. He helped unload feed sacks, his movements steady but humbled. Daniel nodded at him. In that gesture, forgiveness and trust renewed. Evenings were gentle. Daniel, Clara, Ara, Emily, and Max sat on the porch swing. Emily tossed a tennis ball. Max leapt to fetch it, tail wagging in lazy arcs. The skeletal buildings had new skin, repair and life replacing rot. Silver Hollow had been reborn as Hope's Landing. In the echo of hammers, the murmur of cattle, and the warmth of community, Daniel realized he had not buried his past. He built a future. Summer came to Hop's Landing not with fanfare, but with quiet resilience. Grass grew where weeds once ruled. Gardens flourished. Voices filled the streets, and laughter replaced silence. Daniel had built this without intending to. What began as an escape had become a mission. What started with silence ended in community. Clara now ran the general store. She greeted neighbors by name. Her face, once gaunt with worry, now glowed with purpose. Emily, stronger every day, raced Max down the boardwalk, her laughter rising into the sky like birds freed from cages. Her illness a memory, not a sentence. Maddox worked at Maria's ranch, quiet, steady. No longer sheriff, he chose a different kind of service, one of penance, not power. He still bore the weight of his past, but each day he carried it with humility. On warm evenings, the porch became a ritual. Daniel in his chair, Clara beside him, Emily curled up between them, Max's head resting on Daniel's knee. The dog's eyes still watched the horizon, but they no longer scanned for threats, just sunsets. Daniel had stopped counting these scars on his soul. This town didn't erase them. It simply gave them meaning. He'd come to Silver Hollow, a ghost in search of silence. He stayed in Hope's Landing, a man who found a